Alrighty then, welcome back guys, this is SciSyf and well, here we are. We are doing a completely different kind of video this time. It's not something I've done before. In case you're interested in listening to the content that was actually titled in the YouTube video title, there will be a timestamp you can jump to, or chapters, which you can jump to and you can skip this whole long boring explanation. But if you are watching this video, you're probably from one of three sources. One of them, you've been subscribed to the channel for a short period of time within the last 1 year. So you should be very familiar with my usual content, which is my survival series. My survival series is quite simple. I play one Minecraft day per IRL day, edit it down to a 1 minute short, and upload that on YouTube. That's the kind of content I've been posting for the last 1 year. Alternatively, you could have also subscribed in the last 1 year, or you might be an older subscriber, in which case you'll be familiar with my original content, which were more redstone and farm related. In case you're from that section of my subscribers, you've probably just realized that you're subscribed to me and that I'm still uploading videos because I've only been uploading short content for the last 1 year. The third group is probably the people who have seen the YouTube title for this and are interested in the topic that I'm going to be discussing, in which case you people should have probably jumped ahead. But yeah, here's an explanation for all of this. As I said, I'm SciSyf. I'm a Minecraft YouTuber. I used to predominantly post redstone farms and tutorials on this channel. Over the last 1 year, because of life, I have changed my I've changed my content to more shorts-oriented content where I can record without too much effort, edit the video without too much effort, and then basically make content at a reasonably regular basis still. Um, Unfortunately, a problem with that form of content creation is the fact that, well, each video I do only get 20 minutes to record. I have 20 minutes to actually make a decent impact in my Minecraft world, and I can't be doing the same thing for the 20 minutes. For example, the videos where I've just been mining or just been placing blocks haven't done too well on YouTube, and I understand that from a gamer's perspective, it isn't too interesting, and from a viewer's perspective also, it isn't too interesting. Something that has resulted in is the fact that I don't get a lot of progress done in my Minecraft worlds. More often than not, especially in the last 20 to 30 in-game days of my Minecraft survival world, I've been short in materials. I recently did a sort of 3-day montage where I was just enchanting things because I was dying quite frequently because of poor enchants on my armor. And yeah, I wasn't getting the opportunity to just, get a lot of XP, get some good gear. And yeah, that's why I've decided to do this. So, for those of you who are following the short series, you'll remember that I went on an end hunting expedition. I just finished one, and that's where this video actually started from. Sorry, I was in the middle of one, I didn't finish it. And that's where this video has started from. In fact, there are actually 14 minutes from this video that have been cut out because I forgot to record it, which is the other reason why I chose to make this kind of content, because I realized that I had lost 15 minutes out of the 20 minutes of my recording session. So I thought might as well just record a really long episode and just put it out on YouTube rather than worrying about editing. Yeah, and getting back to the point, it means that I don't make a lot of progress in these videos and I'm really constrained. So I thought that, okay, fine, you know what? I will actually record something longer. Maybe record myself talking over it just because I want to, honestly. And maybe that will make for some good viewing content. It might not make for some good viewing content also. But either way, I just want to do something that I do personally enjoy, which is playing Minecraft, talking about certain things, seeing what people think about this. I do a bit of writing on the side as well. Uh, it is sort of part of my job, writing. And yeah, I thought that this would be a really good opportunity for me to test it out because I don't do a lot of vocal content. I think the longest video I've ever posted on this channel might be no more than 15 minutes long and recorded in multiple sections. So yeah, that brings us to the important part. Welcome to episode 1 of SciSyf Talks. This is a name that is still in progress, and this is going to be a series where I talk about random stuff. Usually cricket, because that's the thing that I know the most about. But we'll see. We might have some new topics later down the line. Might be Minecraft, might be music, can be something completely unrelated as well, might be philosophical, who knows. I probably won't get into the philosophy too much. It's not something that I'm very good at, and I have a weird worldview as well. So yeah, we should just get talking about cricket for now. I'm also very interested to see whether I can keep talking for an hour. This is a 1 hour playing session, and I don't think I can actually talk for an hour. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see if I can. But yeah, for all those who are new to the channel, welcome. This is the first time we're doing something like this, so I hope it turns out well. If it doesn't turn out well, this might also be the last time you're hearing of any of this kind of content from this channel. We'll probably just shift back to redstone and survival short form videos after this. But alternatively, it might not. I might record another one of these where I just do a long mining session. The general idea with this is you can just listen in. There'll be random Minecraft sounds in the background, or you can actually see me play, which I'm not very good at. But yeah, let's get started. So the topic of discussion for today is something that's really close to my heart. Actually, it's not. It's just something that I follow very closely, which is cricket. It's a sport I've grown up with, I think from the age of 3 or 4, which is about 20 years I've been following the sport right now. And something very important in the world of cricket just recently happened. The World Test Championship, which is, come to think of it, I don't really think there is an equivalent to this in any other sport in the world, which is probably one of the reasons why this is such a problematic thing to the world of cricket. To those who don't know what's cricket, I can't really explain it. It's like baseball, but longer with a lot more flexibility, if that makes sense. And for those who do know cricket, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So recently the finals just concluded. Finals happened in Lords, London. South Africa versus Australia. And South Africa won. They ended that massive trophy drought that they had and defeated one of the better teams in world cricket right now, Australia. And yeah, there are a lot of things that I want to talk about in this match, and I think we'll just go over them one by one. So the first thing would obviously be the match itself. This wasn't a match I watched a lot of. I was following a lot of it on Cricinfo, as I usually do most of these matches. And it was an absolutely fascinating game because the first 2 days were so bowler friendly. Honestly, I think the balls that I did see, it wasn't as bowler friendly as some of the other pitches we've seen in this World Test Championship. I've seen some of the grounds in South Africa, even Australia, which were far more threatening than this Lord's pitch. And I think this comes down to a couple of things. I think the Lords did serve up a good pitch. In England, weather plays a huge role, and the first 2 days incredibly cloudy and very, very bowler friendly. It doesn't really matter what's going on the pitch if it's cloudy, and I think that's one thing that played a huge part. The second thing is if you take a pitch like, the Gabba at Brisbane, those pitches are known for being extremely seamy. Basically, the amount of deviation that the ball gets after pitching is massive. But that's not actually the biggest problem with those grounds, is that the ball deviates so much that it can entirely miss the bat. And this is something that you hear a lot of pundits talking about, is that when they say the ball is seaming, they tell you to pitch the ball to the left. And the reason for that is just so that you minimize the amount of deviation. So the ball actually takes the edge of the batter's bat rather than miss it entirely. And that's something that we actually saw India make a lot of mistakes in Australia, is that they kept bowling it a bit too short because they saw how much the ball was moving. And what happened was the Australian batters were missing it entirely because the ball was moving around too much. And I think that is something that did not happen here in England. The ball was just moving around by an inch or so, which is just enough to get an inch off the bat. You don't need 3 to 4 inches of movement, you just need an inch. So yeah, that's a very technical thing. Don't think that really matters. But what was more interesting was the final session. Aiden Markram and Temba Bavuma. Tell what you want about the batting conditions, easing up, and other things. They just batted fantastic. I think Temba Bavuma this World Test Championship has batted astoundingly well. I think there were those few series in South Africa. I think they were also in West Indies where he batted beautifully. And there's also the point that this match was always going to be competition of the two bowling squads. Um, no one really cared about the batting. There weren't any superstars in South Africa outside of Markram and Bavuma, obviously. Kyle Verreynne had a good run of form, and everyone else seemed quite new. Meanwhile, Australia was in this weird spot where Steve Smith had just found his form again. Usman Khwaja had just spent an entire series nicking off to Jasprit Bumrah. Travis Head had a weird IPL. He had a sort of good, sort of bad one. Manas Labuschagne has no clue what he's batting. I'm sorry, I really love Manas Labuschagne. It's probably important for me to point out here that I'm a huge Aussie supporter. So it really hurt to see them lose, but well, here I am. And honestly, it seemed really odd. Cameron Green was coming off a long international break, but he was batting really well in the counties. Bo Webster is also just a fantastic batter, and I was hoping to see him bat a lot more than he did. He obviously played very well in the first innings, but obviously no one showed up in the second innings except for Mitch Stark, who again is one of my favorite players. And it was really good to see him go over there and bat. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, and nothing needs to be said about the South African bowling squad. There's obviously the weird selection of Lungi Ngidi, which turned out to be perfectly right in the end. Rabada is an absolute legend. Marco Jansen is an absolutely fantastic cricketer. But yeah, that brings us to the whole point, which is that this was always going to be a battle between the bowling teams. The batters were never going to show up, honestly. I think we wouldn't be surprised if all the innings were less than 200 run scores. And it nearly was. Except for those couple of sessions on day 3 when Markram and Rabada Markram and Bavuma just took the game entirely out of Australia's hands. And yeah, I think that's just a consequence of A, being a really good team, and B, being England. There's so much weightage on the weather. I think most Aussie supporters will grumble about the same thing for the 2023 Ashes. The weather really wasn't on our side. And yeah, I think these are just us trying to find excuses at this point. But yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic game. South Africa really deserved this. And yeah, that actually gets us to the next point as to what this does for world cricket. And the answer is honestly absolutely nothing. There were talks about a tiered system for the World Test Championship, and what's the point of that? I mean, South Africa, I think they drew 1-1 versus India at home. They didn't play England in this cycle, and now they've defeated Australia in the one match that they've actually played against them in this World Test Championship cycle. And yeah, the thing is, South Africa are not going to play another home game until 2026. They're not playing a lot of cricket in general. Australia, India, and England are going to still be playing the most amount of cricket. And it does absolutely nothing. Sure, I think what's going to happen is that more people are going to take interest in the game in the longest format of the game in South Africa. But at least for the next 2 years, in terms of a more organizational or a scheduling perspective, nothing much is going to change. And that again brings up a few criticisms of the World Test Championship itself. Is the way that it's structured gives no requirement for teams to play all over the world, play in neutral conditions, play in varied conditions, and so on. They have come up with a points percentage system, and whoever did the scheduling has really been a bit in the rare end, because South Africa just gamed the system perfectly. They have taken a system which doesn't give them too many games, which isn't good for the cricket as is. But they've made the most out of it. They have beat the teams that mattered when it mattered. They were able to get away with sending a tier 2, tier 3 squad to New Zealand. Uh, Poor Neil Brand might never ever play a game again, but he was leading that squad and he did it really well, honestly. Um, and yeah, there's no need for South Africa to change anything because for all we know, they can do it again. Themba Bavuma is a great captain. He's got a great team with him. And sure, if they are playing 12 games every 2 years, there's a good chance they're going to win most of those games and make it to the final again. And yeah, that's honestly the entire problem of the World Championship is that it doesn't give this. It has retrofitted the existing schedule in cricket to work within its point system rather than give some boost for teams to actually, go out and play those 15 games or 20 games to make it slightly more even. Because right now the disparity is massive. England plays about 22 versus the other squads which play about 12. And obviously England are not going to make the finals if they are playing 22 games. And yeah, they're not going to make it because every single game they are basically playing a different team. Which brings me to a very interesting point I wanted to make about the World Test Championship itself, the final itself. So last year there was a lot of commotion about the fact that the World Test Championship should not be a one-off game and instead should be a series. Um, I don't know if the commotion about that has begun this time around, but last time Pat Cummins was perfectly fine with it being a one-off game. So it would be really odd if he comes around and says that yeah, it should be a series. Um, but for those who follow the match, you will know that Kagiso Rabada and Lungi Ngidi bowled extremely long spells. The reason for that is that they don't have a lot of international cricket coming right up very soon. So the sort of game of workload management, which has become a buzzword around the world of cricket right now, wasn't really a thing for consideration. So you did actually get the scenario where you had a team playing its best players to the best of their capabilities for as long as possible. And that's what a one-off game allows you to do. Is it lets you play your players to the best of the capabilities. In case there's a multi-format series, sorry, a multi-match series, you probably have Rabada taken off after a 5 over spell because you're thinking about what happens in the next game. And this is exactly what happened to India when they toured Australia, is that they bowled Jasprit Bumrah to the ground. And sure, personally, I feel that Australia could have won the Sydney Test even with Bumrah bowling. It would have been a lot harder than what it actually turned out to be. But yeah, India just made the job so much more easier for Australia by bowling Bumrah to the ground in the first 4 games. It's absolutely incredible what he pulled off in those matches. And the thing is, India are already considering his workload management for the next series. I think they've already put out a statement saying that he's only going to play 3 games. And yeah, that's the reason why I personally believe that the World Test Championship final should just be a single game. And it's also the reason why I think the series themselves should have some form of control over the number of games they're playing. You either choose whether you want to test out whether teams have the best team and the next best 5 players in the world, the best 16, or you test out whether they want the best 11. In case you want the best 11, you choose, say, 10 games around the world, which will count for the World Test Championship. Make sure that the teams play their best 11 for those 10 games, and then see where things go from there. If you're playing a team like, if you take England's case, for example, where they've played 22 matches, I don't think their 11s for most of these games were consistent. They've handed out debuts to so many players right now. And yeah, it's basically a test as to whether England have the best 22 players in the world versus South Africa, who just need their best 11 or 30. And well, yeah, it's also an interesting point to note where do these teams play. There's been this whole confusion about whether away games should count more than home games, and I believe that's truly the case. It should. But there's nothing you can do about that, and it also defeats the point of having your best 11s, especially in case you're playing in places like Sri Lanka or India, um, where you have teams handing out debuts to these brand new spinners just to see what they can pull off in subcontinental conditions. And that brings me to my next point, which is where should the World Test Championship finally be held? So far, it's been held in England. They've been held in 3 different English grounds. The first 2 I wasn't totally on board with, but the third one, which is Lord's, I am in full agreement. If there's one place you want to be hosting the ultimate test, as they call the World Test Championship final, it should be Lord's. It's the home of cricket. There's a lot of legacy, etc., etc. It's just a wonderful place to play cricket, visually as well. But there's actually one extra point that I would like to point out here, is that England is probably the most neutral venue in the world to all countries except for India. India is the only team that has a bad record in England, especially at Lord's. Which is why, in case England does qualify for one of the subsequent World Test Championships, it makes perfect sense to actually host it in England, unless it's against India, in which case you might have a problem. Obviously, there's the India tour of England coming up. It'll be nice to see that India notches up a couple of wins so that we just prove a bit more that England's actually a very neutral place to play cricket. And there are a lot of discussions about this, in that if you choose to have a perfectly neutral venue each and every final, you're going to have this whole mapping out in case, for example, say Australia versus South Africa. I think England is still the most neutral venue, but you could also have it in India. Or if it's Australia versus New Zealand, literally any other country outside of Australia and New Zealand is going to be a neutral venue. And honestly, you could just play them in each of their venues, because the pitches are reasonably familiar. They're reasonably the same kind of pitches. You're going to have India versus Sri Lanka can play anywhere again. But then India versus Australia is going to be a real problem, because are you going to favor your spinners? Are you going to favor your pacers? And yeah, that's just a whole nightmare to organize. And that's why I feel like it should just stay in India. Now, in case the World Test Championship does become serious, you could have one match played in each of the other countries' venue, but then you're going to have to worry about the third match and where you're going to be playing that. And not only that, it also extends your preparation for the final to at least a month. I'm being very tight with my schedules here, because Test match is 5 days. You have to travel to another country. Most of the cricket playing nations are within a 4 or 5 hour time difference. Adjust to the new ground and then play a game of cricket there for another 5 days and then move on, which is going to take forever. Which is why I absolutely hate the idea of a 3-match World Test Championship. This brings us back to our old point about hosting. Hosting is a bit of a problem, because you can't have it in a place like India. Because if you are playing a test match in India, and especially in case it's a team like, say this final itself, Australia and South Africa. Australia wouldn't be playing Hazelwood. They probably wouldn't be playing either Cummins or Stark. They'd be playing Matthew Kuhneman. They'd be playing Todd Murphy. They might even give Cooper Connolly an extra match. South Africa have a couple of extra spinners as well. I don't remember their names, unfortunately. In case it was New Zealand, you'd be having Ijaz Patel with Santner. Hell, even Somerville might show up. Sodhi as well is in the squad. But yeah, it brings us to the next point, is that every single other team outside of Sri Lanka and India, and I think even Pakistan now, they've got a good spin pair, and Bangladesh, of course. Their best players are not their spinners. They do have a spinner in their best 11, a really good spinner at that, but their second and third spinners are definitely not making their best 11 unless it's in Indian conditions, which defeats the point of the World Test Championship, which is to have, two of the best test teams in the world fight it out. And this is honestly not a problem that India seem to have because they traditionally do play two or three spinners irrespective of the conditions. Uh, just because of the quality of the spinners that they were playing, which is Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin. Even the current crop, which is Akshar Patel, Washington Sundar, Kuldeep Yadav, I feel are really good spinners. They don't necessarily need spinning wickets to help them out, which I think the BCCI might not really consider. They'll just probably prepare spinning wickets anyway, in spite of really having the best spin attack in the world. And I think that's something that India gets a lot of stick for. They have a really good spin attack, but they just keep over doctoring the pitches by so much that it really takes away from what's one of the best spin attacks in the world uh, of all time, I feel. Ashwin and Jadeja alone, absolutely lethal. They don't need spinning tracks. But back to the point. If the World Test Championship final was held at any ground in the subcontinent, the two teams that would be playing would not be the best 11s. England still provides the most neutral venue for all the other squads to perform. And India can honestly go into Lords with two spinners. They probably will anyway because they don't have pure spinners in the team anymore, except for maybe Kuldeep Yadav. They just keep going in with all rounders, which means that, yeah, you're just getting an extra batter. And yeah, I don't think India really have to complain about anything there. Now, another topic of discussion that the World Test Championship final would have got into the minds of most people is the fact that 28 wickets fell on the first 2 days. And I think someone has already raised this point, one of the Indian experts, quote unquote, in the commentary box, basically complaining that, hey, if this was a game in India, most people are being really frustrated about this. Um, and to that I say, well, there are a few things. Obviously, it's really annoying that you had so many wickets fall in the first 2 days. But something really important happened, which is that on the third and fourth day, the pitch somewhat flattened out. And once again, I think as I mentioned slightly earlier in this recording, is that the way English pitches work, it doesn't actually matter what's going on the pitch. It's more about the air. At which point you're considering whether you should be complaining about the weather. Well, the English did actually complain about the weather in India, and that's something I'm not going to touch because that was a really bad move and a really bad comment. But the point remains about the pitch itself. Is that the first 28 wickets wasn't a lethal pitch. I saw the first few overs. I don't think at any point did I think that, okay, fine, this is a dangerous pitch. The ball's jagging around dangerously. It wasn't. And the fact that it flattened out over day 3 and day 4, I think really just redeems the pitch a bit more. But I do think in a way I am grasping at loose straws here. Firstly, I wasn't too happy with the number of wickets that fell. Did any of us actually watching the match or in anticipation of the match think that few wickets would fall? No, these are two of the most fast bowler friendly attacks in the world. It was going to be a wickets fest. There were never going to be any runs scored in this match. I don't think that was in anyone's expectation that this would be a high scoring final. Having said that, too many wickets did fall. But having said that, the pitch seemed alright. It wasn't very green. The weather was optimal for fast pitch bowling. And yeah, I think, as I said, I am grasping at straws, but I will probably give my opinion on why people had such a problem with Indian pitches. The reasons actually got nothing to do with the sheer number of wickets that fall on Indian surfaces, but rather with the sheer variety and the lack of permanence of character of an Indian pitch. Let me explain this. Basically, if you go to Australia, Australia famously just has five grounds that host matches during their Test summer. It's Perth, which was at the WACA, is now the Optus Stadium. Famously fast pitch, really, really fast, really, really bouncy. You have Adelaide, which is host to the day and night test, which has its own set of not perks, um, own set of problems. You obviously have the pink ball, which behaves weirdly at night, and so on. But in general, Adelaide, very high scoring venue, also a good fast bowling pitch. You have the Gabba, which is always a green wicket, known for tons of seam. You have Sydney, which is one of the few places where you can expect spin in Australia. It's also one of the highest scoring grounds, which um, is also host to most of the draws in Australia. And then you have Melbourne, which is again just a fast pitch, good amount of seam, very high scoring of the first 3 or 4 days, and then gets good for the bowlers later on. One of the best pitches in world cricket, in my opinion. India, on the other hand, has none of this, especially over the last few years, which is why people are more concerned. If you take a look at the numbers for the Wankhede Stadium, the stadium at Mumbai, it's famously been one of the only fast bowler friendly pitches in the country. Earlier, the most wickets by a visiting bowler at the Wankhede were by Ian Botham and Richard Hadley, who are both fast bowlers. But right now, the record is with Ajaz Patel, who's a spinner from New Zealand. And especially the India versus New Zealand series really brought this massive magnifying glass to this problem of Indian pitches, which is the first match, which was held in Bangalore. It was a fast bowling wicket for, I think, like 1.5 hours, in which time was India got bowled out. It then flattened out because of the weather again. And then it suddenly was awesome for batting, but it was already too late for India to do anything. Right after that, after seeing how well the New Zealand pacers bowled in Indian conditions, the next two pitches just morphed into spinning tracks. Sure, the second match, I think we were all expecting a spinning wicket, but the Wankhede was a bit of an odd one, especially after knowing that it was such a good pace bowling track first. And this is something that just keeps happening in India. We had, I believe, the Ahmedabad test during the India vs Australia tour, which transformed into this docile, purely for batting wicket in the final game of the test series, where Australia just needed to win it to draw the series. It didn't make sense because Australia served up a very spicy wicket for the Sydney test on the flip side. In a series where if Australia lost this match, they would once again lose ownership of the Border Gavaskar Trophy. There's all of that going on, especially with India's fast bowling attack, which can still make the most of it. Australia pitched a pitch which would help both bowling sides. It didn't particularly help one of them. India's plan obviously backfired against New Zealand, but once again, if you think about Australia, where the Ahmedabad pitch was a flat tracker, only I think a year or so before that, when England had toured, Joe Root had a 5-wicket haul on that same pitch. And yeah, this basically brings us down to the core point that I'm trying to make, is that Indian pitches just seem to morph based on the requirements of the team and based on the requirements of the series, which is not that great for a visiting squad. It's not very enjoyable. I think if you're visiting a country as a player, you want things that you want to look forward to. You don't want to be playing the exact same match in 3 different locations. Hell, even Pakistan somehow figured out how to serve up 2 different kinds of pitches in the same ground, which was absolutely hilarious and fascinating how Pakistan figured out how to do that. And probably some of my best pieces of reading over the last year of cricket is Pakistan deciding that, okay, fine, we've had enough of flat pitches. We're going to transform this flat pitch into a spinning track, and we're going to beat England. And while India thought, okay, fine, we're just going to make a spinning track, we're going to transform a fast bowling pitch into a spinning track. But then they went and lost, which was hilarious. And honestly, India's usage of spinners has been suspect. I think Ravichandran Ashwin's retirement in the middle of the Australian series is a perfect embodiment of that. Ravichandran Ashwin, in my opinion, I don't think there's much of an opinion there. It's known fact. He's one of the best spinners in the world. I think Lyon's the only person who comes close. Definitely one of India's best spinners. Also, maybe one of India's best cricketers ever. He's got so many wickets. He's got runs. He bats very well down the order. I don't think this is a controversial opinion by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, he just never got games. They just not play him most of the time, which is absolutely bizarre. And yeah, India really has this thing where they really want to bat all the way till number 9 or even number 10 on occasion. And then you look at a team like South Africa, you take a look at a team like Australia, who go in with 4 bowlers every single match, irrespective of the conditions. Maybe not in Sri Lanka. I think they did try to bat slightly deeper in Sri Lanka. But the point remains, Australia don't hunt for all-rounders, while India really likes their all-rounders, people who can do a bit of both. And I think it's really troubling the squad a bit, because suddenly everyone needs to bat, and yeah, I think that's something that really cost them Ashwin, because they really wanted him to bat, and there wasn't anything he could do. I think there's some discussion about whether he was in the best of form, but I'm not talking about towards the end of his career. There were plenty of other matches, especially the Indian tour of England, where he could have played a lot more cricket, but he just didn't. And yeah, I think that's just something that India has to figure out. They do have a lot of soul searching and figuring out to do before the upcoming series against England. England themselves, I don't know what they're going to do. It makes absolutely no sense. England team selection is one of the most confusing things in world cricket right now. They have this problem with Zach Crawley, Ollie Pope, and Jacob Ethel. Jacob Ethel seems like a really good player. I've seen a little bit of him play in New Zealand for RCB in the IPL. I think he's also played against West Indies. I think he's played against the West Indies as well. He's played fantastically. He's a really good-looking player. But I don't think he's an opener. I don't think anyone's tried him as an opener. So I think Zach Crawley's place is firm. Ollie Pope's the confusing one because he does do this thing where he just pops in and scores a century every so often. But he also has this weird record where he scored a century against every single opposition, but he doesn't have a second century against them, which means that he should statistically be completely useless against India this series. But yeah, only time will tell. He did have that fantastic knock against Zimbabwe a few weeks ago. Maybe that's something good for him. But yeah, I think England also have to look at the fast bowling stocks. They have Mark Wood, they have Jofra Archer, both of whom I think will definitely not play all 5 games. You have Josh Tongue, who I really like. You have Matty Potts, who's also a really good bowler. You have Gus Atkinson, who is, I think, their best bowler right now. Bryden Carse, who's quite good as well. Bats as well. All of them bat, which is a real problem. I think that's what England has really got away with, in that when they're looking for their all-rounders, they haven't actually looked for all-rounders. They've looked for really strong people who can swing the bat and see the ball really well, which is what India misses. India does not have really strong people who can swing the bat. And yeah, and then you have these other players. You have Josh Hull. You obviously have Chris Wokes, who has to play the series because he's so good in England. He's also the oldest member of the squad, bats brilliantly, bats terrifically against India in places like Lords, if I'm not wrong. There's also the question about Ollie Pope being, from London. He will bat really, really well there. So I don't think you can really drop him. I really wish Jack Leach would play, but I don't think he's in Brendan McCullum and Benjamin Stokes' considerations anymore. I really love Jack Leach. Still slightly salty after Headingley, but hey, well, he's a fantastic bowler. Meanwhile, on the flip side, India have these huge problems with two of their best test cricketers, best in quotes. I'm not too sure. I think Kohli absolutely fantastic. Rohit Sharma, I'm not a huge fan of, but what I will agree is that he was a massive cog in that playing 11, and now he's not. So yeah, that's something they have to fix. They don't have an Ashwin. It's not like it would have mattered anyway. They weren't playing Ashwin in England for some reason. Um, they're going to be playing a bunch of spinners. They're going to be playing a bunch of spinning all rounders. They have three of them in the squad. Um, they're probably going to be looking at that pace bowling all rounder. I think it's going to be between Nitish Kumar Reddy and Shardul Thakur. Uh, I'd go with Thakur just because he's had a better time in England, and Reddy seems to have fallen off in the last few games he's played. But honestly, I think you can say the same for Thakur as well. Meanwhile, the other batters, I think, there's Sai Sudarshan, who had a terrific IPL. I think he should be an automatic selection to the squad, especially in the opening position. I was really hoping to see Abhimanyu Ishwaran play, but I don't think he's been doing very well in India A games. So it's unfortunately going to be another series he's going to miss. As much as I really want to see him play, there's obviously the whole question about whether Jasprit Bumrah will get a lot of games. I think the fast bowling attack is also relatively new outside of Siraj. Um, and there's the massive question about Shubman Gill's captaincy. I don't really want to comment on that. I don't know what's going to happen. This is honestly a series of so many question marks where you don't know who is going to play in any of the games. You don't know if most of the players are going to stay fit for the entire series, let alone not even the entire series. I don't know. They can pick up an injury tomorrow. That's been how England and India have been playing the cricket for the last year or so. They just get injured, and England just calls up a completely new county player every single time. I don't know who they're going to call up. It makes absolutely no sense. And yeah, this is why I'm not. I don't know what to expect from the India vs England series. I know it's going to be quite chaotic. Um, there's no Kohli to fan the flames, but then again, I'm not sure about the younger generation of Indian cricketers. I'm quite certain they're going to pick up something. Jaiswal fired up mid-start. I'm quite certain that they can do it all over again. And yeah, I think as an Aussie supporter, this does bring some questions about the Ashes. Obviously, Australia do have a few players who are going to be retiring. Usman Khawaja is reaching the end of his career. Doesn't look too good the way he's been getting out of late. I'm quite certain that England will figure out a way to get past him. They need a new opener. Sam Constas should get a few games against West Indies, I hope. Fast bowling, Mitchell Stark is the oldest of the fast bowlers. Nathan Lyon is the oldest of the bowlers. We don't know whether they're going to be retiring. They haven't said anything. Stark still seems like one of the best players in Australia. Um, I'm very biased, but still. He's fast. He still does his job the way he's supposed to. He might not retire this year, but I don't know whether he's going to make it to the next Ashes, because the next Ashes is obviously a 1.5 year away, which is a bit much. Um, And well, yeah, there are a lot of questions. There's this whole batting order that they've got to fix. They've got to figure out who their number three is. They have to figure out whether they're playing Bo Webster and Cameron Green. Um, they have to figure out whether Manas Labuschagne is still playing, because he's scoring absolutely no runs for anyone. I think he didn't play too great for Glamorgan or Gloucestershire. I forgot which is his county squad. But yeah, he's not performing too well in the counties. Um, I don't think his fast medium bowling is going to help him get into the squad, because you have Bo Webster and Cam Green for that. I hope Cam Green can figure out what's up with him, because even in the counties, I think he's been alternating games where he's performed well. He looks really good, honestly. Um, and obviously, having Bo Webster and Cam Green does sort out your fielding issues. I was joking with a friend that Australia basically get an extra fielder if these two are in the slips, um, because they cover up such a huge area. And I think almost everyone's making that joke, and everyone has spoken about it for an extended period of time. Um, I don't think they really got to experiment with that, Australia, in the World Test Championship final. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where things go from here for Australia. And once again, as for England, goodness knows what they're going to do. They still have another 6 months. There is cricket being played during that time in England. They can find a brand new player. I think the word that Cricinfo used a while back for these kinds of players are genetic freaks. I don't want to go that far. They're just going to find someone who can bowl really, really fast against Australia. They're going to have to keep Archer and Woods safe, which I think is probably the biggest of their concerns. I think batting, Joe Root will just score all the runs. I don't think they need any other batters because Joe Root's an absolute legend. Uh, it doesn't help that they do have a good chunk of batters in their squad as well. But yeah, the Ashes is again a huge question mark, mainly because of England, and also because Australia just lost the World Test Championship final. There are going to be questions they're going to have to figure out. But knowing the way that Australia have played the cricket for the last year or so, I think they're going to stick with most of their players. They're not going to be massive changes in the squad composition going forward. And I think that's a good thing about Australian cricket is that they never change, so it makes it really easy to follow the game. However, it makes it really hard to support them because sometimes you have players who are desperately out of form, who are not, um, not getting fixed, quote unquote. Um, yeah, I think Mitchell Marsh is probably the last example of that. It took a time for him to get replaced. Obviously, Bo Webster. Uh, Bo Webster had to have what 2 or 3 seasons where he top scored in first class cricket to get into the squad. Um, which is absolutely bonkers how much effort it took for him to break through. But it's good to see Mitch Marsh performing uh, in the IPL. He was absolutely fantastic in the IPL. I think some of the advertisements he's been acting in since have also been amazing. I love Bison ads. I think he's doing something for some eyewear company, which is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, it's always good to see the Bison back and playing touch, which it seems to be the case right now. So yeah, the question arises: is Mitch Marsh going to make it back into the squad? I don't think he's going to be bowling too much. Um, but yeah, there's also the question about all the new players that Australia are trying to find. There's Sam Constas, who should be opening against West Indies. I hope he does. There's Cooper Connolly, who's another weird player. He's some form of left armer. He bats a little bit. Doesn't have much first-class cricket or this day cricket to talk about. But yeah, just one of those people that Australia has decided to invest in, which is very interesting. There's obviously Nathan McSweeney, who I really enjoyed for the very little amount of time he played in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. I just hope he just gets a few more opportunities because he seems like a proper replacement for, Usman Khwaja. He's got a very solid defense. He's got the temperament that requires you to, defend for long periods of time. He's captain South Australia, I think, to the championship, which is really good. Which is absolutely fantastic. It's what you want in a player, especially if you're looking beyond Pat Cummins' captaincy. God knows when that is going to. I just hope it's not a Meg Lanning situation where Cummins retires too early. Oh no, I've just jinxed it. That's not good. That's not at all good. But yeah, Australia do have a lot of questions, especially about the new players. We don't know when the old players are going to be retiring. I don't think there's going to be too much fanfare for the rest of the squad's retirements. Steve Smith just dipped out very quietly. I think only David Warner really had a massive announcement. I think he announced it 1 year before, which was absolutely bonkers. Like, why would you do that? Um, but yeah, I think that's where Australia stands. And the Ashes are going to be interesting. There's too much reliant on English injuries and what happens to England against India. Is there going to be a management change? I don't know about the English coaching contracts either. I don't know when Baz's contract ends. Um, I don't know if Stokes is going to do something otherworldly. They are known for this. It's not a good position to be in. As someone who's trying to predict the future, I think the best we can do is just sit back and wait for stuff to happen, because that's all we can do. Now, all this talk about India, England, and Australia brings us to this topic that was raised, which is the tier system in the World Test Championship. Now, originally, I was all for this because I didn't read the entire article which described what the tier system was going to be. But yeah, just talking about it, the idea of a tier system that I thought would work is if you had two tiers of 5 teams each. I think Jared Kimber suggested 3 tiers of, I think, 4 teams or something bigger. But either way, you have 2 tiers or X tiers of N teams each. And yeah, they just play. The bottom two get relegated. The bottom two from tier 1 get relegated. The top two from tier 2 get promoted, and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of problems with this. With just this system alone. One of which is what happens to your, say, Australia versus Bangladesh teams. Assuming Australia are in tier 1 and Bangladesh is in tier 2, what happens to those games? I think those matches are just as important as, having teams play against teams of an equal caliber. These are matches that have given rise to, all the upsets that cricket is famous for. These are not things that tend to happen in other sports very often. These massive upsets, and especially they don't happen at the frequency that it happens in cricket. You don't have your Bangladesh defeating Australia wouldn't happen in any other sport unless it's a World Cup or something. So there arises this issue of the cross-tier matches. Now, the way I understand it in football, in the English and European football, is that there are additional tournaments which sort of have the opportunity for teams in different tiers to play each other. I don't see how that's actually going to be implemented in cricket. I don't think it's possible for it to be implemented in cricket. The good thing about the tier system is it would obviously allow equal competition teams, to have a slightly closer World Test Championship scoreboard. It will also allow, teams like Zimbabwe, Ireland, and Afghanistan to play just that more, quote-unquote, meaningful cricket. Because I think you would have to include them in the tier system to make it substantial enough. But there is a problem with the tier system that was officially suggested, because it seemed to be that the top 3 in the tier would be India, England, and Australia, just because of the stake that they hold in the ICC, which really defeats the point, in my opinion. Maybe it's a suggestion that that's how they wanted it to start off, and maybe it will evolve over time. But yeah, just the fact that, the factor of the amount that a particular board plays in the ICC is what is factoring in the position and the quality of the teams that their cricket teams play doesn't really sit right. And it feels really odd and really out of place. I'm quite certain that a tier system would work. There are a lot of kinks to be ironed out, but I think it might work just that bit better than the current World Test Championship with all its unevenness in the number of games that each team is playing, which is absolutely sensible. Would it solve all of those problems? Probably not. I think if you're going to address the problem through a tier system, you do need to have in mind that these are the problems that you're trying to fix. The fact that teams are not playing enough cricket, that teams are playing too much cricket, that teams are playing too little cricket, teams that aren't, playing cricket in a good variety of conditions against a good set of opponents. And yeah, you're also going to have to just stick to the sort of roots of the game, which is everyone gets to play everyone else. You have these ancient series that have been contested forever, which does still have some history and standing to them. There's rivalries going on there that you would do away with entirely if it comes down to the World Test Championship. Sorry, to a tiered World Test Championship. Which does bring us to the question as to whether the World Test Championship is required at all. And I feel it's fine. It honestly is required. You need these teams to work towards something. It sort of gives you this natural reset in time. Otherwise, it would be. Otherwise, the usual case was Australia and England would just reset after an Ashes, whereas everyone else had no clue what was going on until their major players just retired from all forms of cricket at the end of a World Cup. The World Test Championship does give you the chance to do these things. You've seen um, Ashwin Kohli and Rohit Sharma just retired at the end of this cycle. I'm quite certain there were other things at play there, but it's entirely possible that this seemed the most sort of logical choice chronologically as a time for them to retire. Just retire at the end of a cycle, and I think it just gives players and teams this sort of natural time that okay, fine, this is the point in time where we've got to rethink things. I think that's always been the case in ODI cricket. You can sort of map out the evolution of teams in between World Cups. You sort of had post 2011, it was the Indian World Cup. Post 2015, it was England doing their whole revival um, that culminated in the 2019 World Cup win. 2015 was also the time that most of the players in the world retired. You had the massive Sri Lankan retirement with Jayawardene and Sangakkara. I think that's what I associate most with the 2015 World Cup. Michael Clarke retired as well. So you have these sort of natural decays that have been happening in cricket, and I think the World Test Championship just gives you the sort of impetus to do it slightly more frequently and at a more specific time. It gives these test players something to fight for, and I think what it also does, really importantly, is it lets us as a viewer really see what the deficits in the world game are. I don't think without the World Test, I think without the World Test Championship, we would not have realized the sheer disparity in the number of games that a team like England or a team like South Africa are playing over a short period of time. And I think the disparities are just continuously increasing. If you look at the number of games that South Africa are playing over the next cycle as well, it's absolutely bonkers how little cricket they're playing and how much cricket everyone else is playing. I think even Zimbabwe are playing as much cricket as them, which is hilarious. Um, but yeah, I think the World Test Championship does do this secondary thing of bringing to a lot of our notice the multiple existent problems in world cricket right now. And I don't think that would have happened otherwise. And yeah, I think it's got a long way to go. I think there are a lot of problems with it. I don't think a lot of the problems are ever going to get solved. I think cricket is such a sport that these problems will never get solved. Then this is not the sport for comparison to other sports, and honestly, not even the sport for fairness. I think it's sort of the way that the game has evolved. But yeah, we still follow it best we can. And yeah, I think that's just going to do it for me. I think I've run out of things to talk about, and it's been an hour for me of me talking. I don't know whether the last 20 odd minutes have been gibberish, but yeah, if you guys enjoyed this and would like to see more of it, um, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I normally don't do this. I don't ask people to subscribe, but yeah, if you do like this, just let me know in the comment section below. I might try it again, might try a different topic, might try the same topic. If you're a cricket fan and would like to know more, also leave a comment down below. Can try and get a few stats next time. I'm doing this completely blind on this occasion. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned. I do have a few plans for a few more long form Minecraft videos. I am not going to be doing a lot more talk videos. This is going to be the only format in which I do these. But yeah, in case you enjoyed this, please let me know, and I shall catch you in the next one. So, ciao for now. This has been SciSyf, and I shall see you in the next video.